animal welfare. All I can say is that every time a big truck drives by with pigs inside of it, I do cry, and they look very sad.
Can you tell me what the Farm Bill is?
Nope. Farm Bill? Yeah, nope.
Animal welfare? Well, I assume that's when an animal family is below the poverty line and receives additional support from the government. So the Farm Bill is the man who has worked on the farm for 80 years.
Tell me, what do you know about Proposition 12 in California?
Oh, nothing. I know nothing about that. I'm so sorry. Animal welfare, like how they take care of the animals. You know, agricultural and food things.
I don't know what the Farm Bill is.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the CAT Podcast. I'm your host, Sidney Schnor, and today I am here with...
My name is Graceline Dahlhauser. I am a senior here at Iowa State in Ag Communications.
And she was one of our students with the episodes that we'll be releasing for this season. So we wanted to do a little bit of a mini-series where we talk to some of the students, ask them about the podcasting process, and just hear a little bit more about their perspective. Like, obviously, you heard my perspective and Dr. MK's perspective, but now it's time for us to hand this back over to the students to tell us how their semester went and maybe their first podcasting experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this was my first podcast experience. I've never done anything like it before. Me and my partner Cameron kind of sat down and explored the ideas of urban farming. So we wanted to look into urban farming just because we have a growing population, and to our knowledge, we're going to have to double our food production by 2025. Not double, sorry, increase by 70 to 100%, I think is the stat that we had looked at. So we're like, oh my goodness, how do we do this? A lot of our population is moving into cities and away from rural areas. As we know, our farms are shrinking. And so we kind of came up with the idea of urban farming, and it was just a personal interest too. I just wanted to know, how can we grow food in cities?
Yeah, no, that is a very worthwhile topic. And then how did you narrow down specifically what you looked at?
We wanted to look at urban farming just because it has so much innovation in it. It's kind of not been that explored. We found a couple of documentaries, but other than that, previously it's been happening in communities, but not at a large scale yet. So there's researchers trying to do it at a large scale, but right now it's kind of just like small community farms, and people aren't, like I said, producing food at a large scale.
Yeah, that's interesting, and a good aspect of the topic that I don't think I have even explored yet. Like, what would that look like in a city setting? And I think that's on a lot of people's minds too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a really cool aspect to think about.
Yeah.
So just for the audience, when they're creating these podcasts, we have them do a 3-person point of view, and you'll see that in the episodes too. I'm sure you've caught on to that formation of the podcast. So it's really exploring 3 different points of view within that topic. So with that in mind, could you explain how you chose people to talk about your topic, right? So you chose 3 different people with 3 different perspectives on your topic. So how'd you go about finding those people to talk to about urban farming?
Yeah, it took a little bit of research. One of the reasons we liked the urban farming topic was just because it's so controversial. We live in a really rural community right now, and we don't exactly experience some of the food shortages that maybe cities would. And so finding individuals that had expertise, I think expertise was one of our biggest criteria when it came to filtering out who we were going to interview and who we weren't. So we wanted to do people who were active in research and had played a big role in what we were interviewing them about. So we chose Clayton's farm. He has a restaurant here in Ames, and we would consider him an urban farmer. So he's hydroponically growing salads. And then we chose a farmer actually to speak to. And then we chose a horticulture student who had experience in growing and whatnot.
Yeah, those are interesting perspectives. Clayton Farms is is really interesting. They spoke in an entrepreneur class that I had taken during my master's here, and I applied for an internship, and that would be such a dream to work for them. I loved all of their ideas.
So fascinating.
Yeah, and just such a different perspective on how to do a restaurant too. Just
It's
genuinely.
yummy too. It's so good.
And see, I've never been, so that kind of makes me a
Really?
poser that I'm saying like, oh, they're so cool. I've never even been.
It's so yummy. You should try it out.
Yes, because that's in North Ames.
It's right by the mall in North Ames. The owner is Clayton Mooney. He's awesome to talk to. They do tours there. If anyone's interested in any urban agriculture, just to check it out, it's super cool.
Yeah. So with that, how do you ask good questions that lead you to the answers, like lead you to the answer of the question, right? Because like you have to make some assumptions when you make a question. But how was that question formation where you were asking leading questions that could be biased? How did you decide what to ask your guests, and how did you form questions to ask people with these different points of view?
I would say our goal was to have a balanced discussion. So we didn't really walk in there like guns a-blazing. What do you think about this topic? What do you hate about the other point of view? I think it's really important to kind of, with any formal conversation, especially if people are nervous about being on a podcast, is really warm them up. Like ask about their expertise, ask them about things that they're knowledgeable on and not maybe things that they hate. They're going to be a lot more comfortable doing that. So we kind of did that. We just asked them about their background, what they enjoyed, how they thought that they were solving the problem in urban farming, the benefits to it. And then towards the end, we'd ask a couple of questions like, what do you think about this, more specific? One of my biggest tips for this is to avoid like yes and no questions. You're going to make a conversation very awkward. You kind of just want to keep it flowing and be interested in the topic you're talking about. Because I know the semester's busy. I know you're like, I'm just going to pick a topic. Like, we just need to get this rolling. I'm going to chat GPT this thing. But literally, I'm telling you now, just do some research and pick a topic that you're very passionate about, because you're going to be talking to these experts and it's going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. You're going to want to ask more questions. They would much rather have questions asked by you that just aren't like read off of a sheet. They want you to be interested in what they're talking about. So that's kind of how we went about that. We were just very interested in the process and what they had to teach us, and I think it went really well.
That makes me feel so good, because when I was leaving comments on all of the documents, not like just specifically yours, but the class's documents, and I would say, make sure you tap into their expertise. They may answer some of the questions that you have on here by just giving them the floor, because people like to talk
let
about
them talk.
themselves. Yeah, let them talk. See what you can answer by just doing that. Yeah, it's really interesting what you can tap into when you just ask someone, so what are you an expert on? What do you know about this?
Especially people when it comes to like science and agriculture, there's a deep passion that flows there. We're in the ag community, we know that, which also makes talking about like challenging issues hard to do if you feel so passionate. So it's kind of a hard like key to stroke, but I mean, it's really fun too.
And would you say that was the most challenging part, or do you have anything else that was challenging about preparing for these interviews?
Honestly, I think the different perspectives wasn't as hard for me. It was probably the time management and coordinating schedules. So you have this perception, it's like, how am I going to get 3 people who don't agree on something all in a room together? And like, how do we go about this? And how do I find time in my schedule to sit down and have like an energetic conversation with someone? So that was probably our biggest thing, but we kind of just took a step back. We did the interviews one at a time, so not everyone in the same room, which I think is really helpful. We made sure to brief our guests, like, this is going to be a podcast, this is what we're going to talk about. We sent them the questions beforehand, which they really enjoyed. So yeah, that was the biggest challenge, just the time management of it all, especially in a busy semester. But overall, it was a really fun project.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be challenging for the time management piece. Like, obviously, like, we're recording this podcast outside of the semester. Like, it's even a challenge just to manage our schedules to be able to do some of these things. But you make time for things that you're passionate about. So I guess that kind of goes hand in hand with what you were saying prior about like choosing a topic that you're passionate about to put that that quality time into
Yeah.
your podcast episode too.
And one thing I was so surprised, I really thought these experts would not really want to find time to come.
Oh,
but
yeah.
they were like so open about it. They really loved helping out kids. And so, yeah, just go for it. If you have someone big you want to talk to, I know some girls talk to like people at PETA
Yeah.
and like really big companies. And so they're willing to talk. They want to talk to you, whether they agree with you or not. So, I mean, get out there and go do it.
PETA was the first example that came to my mind when you
Really?
said that. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, we even talked to PETA, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something for people to look forward to is that
Mm-hmm.
we do have some really awesome, all of the people that talked on our podcast, the students' podcasts were awesome. So really excited for that. What was it like to interview people with different perspectives? Like, sometimes it can be difficult to talk to people that you know aren't quite on the same page as you about certain topics. So what was that like to be face to face with someone who is saying things that maybe you don't agree with?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a challenge at first. I think I kind of mentally thought about how it would be beforehand, because so much of having a conversation for me is like relating to somebody. So that's like such a great way to have a conversation. Is like, yes, I agree with this. But overall, was just kind of really trying to understand it from their point of view. That was our biggest goal, me and Cameron. Like, why do they believe this? This project overall changed my mindset a lot on why people believe what they believe, even if it's different than me. It's based on their childhood experiences. It's based on where they grew up, their perceptions. And most of these people that we didn't agree with, honestly, they were pretty open to learning more once we told them about the whole project and some of the facts behind it and whatnot. So honestly, food is an issue that people are pretty open about. Growing more food and whatnot. It's not as harsh as maybe some other topics, but yeah, the people we interviewed were really open about it, and it was a really good learning experience.
I like to hear that. That makes me hopeful, right? Like we live in a time where people with different opinions isn't necessarily a friendly thing to talk about or to talk to people who have different opinions, which is kind of the backbone of this assignment is doing that, especially in agriculture with how polarizing some of the topics can be, right? And it just really goes to show how in the middle people can be.
Yeah.
When you talk about your past experiences.
It's so easy with social media just to be like black and white with something. Like, I'm gonna post this infographic because like this is exactly what I believe. And when you get down to the nitty gritty of what people actually truly their values, they're open to learning more most of the time. This project in general has just made me, and the class, the topics we talked about, has made me a lot more curious, I suppose, in people's opinions and what background they've had. It's just made me sit down and think a little bit more like, maybe I shouldn't jump to conclusions about this. There's more for me to learn.
And truthfully, as the TA for this course, because I was the TA for this semester, I wasn't doing the assignments with you guys, right? Like obviously, I was on the backside of that. But even sitting there with you all in class every day, I had some similar revelations as you all as students. Like I'm like participating, but not really participating in the course, which is a weird limbo to be in. But I agree with that, and I think that's a good way to put it. And I hadn't put together that is also how I felt until you said that.
Yeah, it's like way more than ag. And even that, like I thought the typical topics we'd go over were just like, should we use chemicals on our crops or not? Or should we till? And it was definitely not anything like that. We talked about those issues. We talked about world food issues and humanity issues. So overall, it was a great self-development course more than anything.
Yeah, I'm sure Dr. MK will love that when she hears that.
Shout out.
So I do want to take a little bit of a backtrack. In what you were saying, you were talking about personal relationships and like how someone's background, even in the briefing process, how that is like developing a little bit of a relationship with someone, but also learning how they grew into that perspective. What perspective did you come into this with? Like what kind of a background did you come from that formed your perspective of your topic?
Yeah, so a little bit about me. I've always been really interested in local agriculture, my parents had a youth organization when I was growing up for 15 years. And so we had 2 5-acre gardens in the middle of town.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool. And they were organic, local gardens, and we would have a CSA program. And so community members could buy a box that they would get every week of vegetables, basically. And it was all produced by the kids, planted by them. And the goal of it was it was called Cultivate Training Garden. And the goal of this was to give kids skills and keep them busy during the summer,
Yeah.
not watching TV.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where my love for agriculture stemmed. So it was in a local, I would say, a local environment. And I guess I would consider that urban farming now that I think about it. Storm Lake is a town of about 15,000 people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's room in town to grow those stuff. So that's what we did. And that's a little bit of my background on it. Moving into high school, I lived out on a farm, and we kind of have a regenerative farm type of dealio set up there.
Very cool. Very cool. So that was kind of your background that you came into this with. And I guess I'm wondering if your perspective changed at all over the course of exploring your topic.
It did, yeah. At first, I was like a little bit kind of just, why aren't people going out there and just doing it? Like, support these local growers, grow some crops in your backyard. And the problem is really a lot bigger than that if we're looking at amplifying our food production.
Mm-hmm.
There's, from research, especially at Clayton's point of view, there's a lot of infrastructure that goes into this.
Mm-hmm.
There's lights and water and the whole hydroponic system. And they have to find a place for this food to grow. So that was one of the biggest considerations that I hadn't taken into account. These big cities aren't exactly like small towns like Storm Lake where you can just cultivate a 5-acre garden in the middle of town. There's just a little bit more that goes into that. And then there's the question of, are people going to pay the premium for these vegetables? And is this actually going to feed a community? Are vegetables going to feed a community? So I would say I was more pro-urban farming, like gung-ho, let's just go do this. And then this podcast made me sit down and think about more of the facts about it and what realistic steps would need to happen in order to make it happen.
Yeah, it's funny you say that you just can't go out and grow crops. At my old apartment, I had a little deck, and there was a deck above me, so like it kind of got some shade, kind of got some sun. I got some free plants. I was working at a store at the time, and they had a greenhouse, and they were like, okay, plants are over. Do you want any of these half-dead plants? And I said, sure. So then I went and I dumped like $60 into buying like 5-gallon buckets, drilled holes in the bottom, bought dirt.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't grow anything except jalapenos and chilies.
Yeah,
So I
can't go far on those.
yeah, and the chilies were so hot, I couldn't do anything with them. It was like, oh, this is kind of a bust. And then I did it again the next year, still a bust. Still only can grow chilies and jalapenos.
You know who you need? So the gal that we interviewed, her name is Blake. And so she's the horticulture student. She runs a business called Plant Nannies. So it's kind of like, you probably heard it on the podcast, but it's kind of, is it like Uber? Kind of where you like order her and she comes and takes care of your plants.
Oh,
so
sure,
she's an expert on it. I mean, I've debated calling her over for some of mine that are in the ER.
And see, I was like, I had a garden growing up with my dad, and like we have all sorts of plants like raspberry bushes, and like we have a strawberry bed and all these things. And I was like, I can garden. I grew up gardening. I'm in agriculture. No, it's
so
not
yeah.
that easy.
Yeah, and that was another thing. My perspective changed too, because I had grown up in, you could say, like a rural community. I was the same. We had done gardening, and I was just like, why don't people just buy soil and like research this a little bit? But my eyes are really open that not everyone has that education, and it's not that easy just to go out and do this stuff, especially how the city world works. So
Yeah.
it's fascinating.
Well, and then I realized you have to buy cages for the tomatoes.
And the rabbits, the darn rabbits always
my
get
gosh,
my
the
outdoor.
rabbits, always. Yeah, like it genuinely isn't that easy. You think it is. Just put some seeds in the ground, give it some water, and it'll go. No, it's really not that easy. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So what surprised you the most? I know you hit that a little bit, but could you expand on what surprised you the most, or something else that surprised you?
I would say what surprised me the most is the science behind growing things in an urban environment. I just got for Christmas a hydroponic growing system. So it's by the
Wow.
company Garden, but it's Gardyn.
Okay.
And so we've been growing for about a month now. And so we have like lettuces, cilantro, and whatnot. But I was kind of inspired by that because of what Clayton was telling me about the hydroponic growing of plants and the science behind that and how it could really adapt in an urban environment. So I'm really excited about the future of urban agriculture. If money is invested into it and education is invested into it, I think it's something that is going to become a lot more prevalent in college educations and horticulture and whatnot. So I'm excited about the future of it. I think that's what surprised me the most was the science behind the urban agriculture.
Yeah, I like that. So, my last question for you is what advice would you give future students? I know you hit on one piece of advice earlier about choosing a topic that you're passionate about, but if you had to give one more piece of advice, what would it be?
My one piece of advice would be to use follow-up questions. So plan your questions. Don't use ChatGPT. Be very intentional about what am I actually curious about. Your interviewee will be able to tell if you don't care or if you do. So plan your questions, be interested about it, and use follow-up questions. So ask them a question. Don't just leave don't ask them a question. Don't just leave silence. Don't just let them sit there awkwardly. Ask them more, prod, get to know them a little bit, and you'll have a really great conversation.
What a wonderful way to wrap up this podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we take her out?
I would say just get out there, ask questions, get to know people around you, even if they have different opinions. I think it's something that's going to be very beneficial in our world right now. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And thank you
Thank
all
you.
for tuning in to the CAP podcast. We'll see you next time. To email us with any comments, questions, or concerns, please send us an email at contemporary@iastate.edu.